I'm going to discuss a little bit tonight a little bit of deeper understanding of what the Aleph-Beis are, what's the Hebrew letters, and also a general understanding of its relation and our relationship to sound. We're going to start with I'll quote you a small teaching from the Baal Shem Tov, and then we'll unpack it and we'll go backwards. So normally, when we think about prayer, we think about tefillah. So what do we envision? We envision that prayer is that a person requests, asks, verbally, using sound, using voice, and submits a petition. That's literally the word prayer from the Latin word, which means to petition or to request. And you petition God. You have a list of things that you want. And then sometimes your prayers are answered, sometimes they're not. And when do you pray? So this is a famous argument between Maimonides, the Rambam, and the Ramban, that the Rambam holds that there's a mitzvah to pray daily. Love the b'chol avavchem, that you should serve God with all your heart. It means literally, Ezav v'yiddish v'lev tefillah, which means you have to serve with your heart, and it has to be done daily. Just like you have to ask for your bread daily, you have to serve and pray daily. Nachmanides, the Ramban holds that prayer is only d'Rabbanan, it's only for the sages. But when you need something, then there's a mitzvah to pray. Then there's a commandment to pray, when you really need something. Then there's a biblical mitzvah, the mitzvah min Torah. But again, the image that we have of prayer is that you're standing here, and however you imagine God, from the most concrete anthropomorphic images to pure light and transcendence, there's a certain sense of duality. You're standing in front of something else, and you're requesting. And it's really, once you submit the prayer, it's out of your hands. The Baal Shem Tov says something that seems to be very radical. And he writes, he doesn't write, he teaches, that that when a person prays, you have to ask from the letters, from the words that you pray. So not that, or maybe not only that, you're praying to God in front of God, but somehow the actual words themselves that you're praying, that you're vocalizing, that in itself is the answer to your prayer. The way you formulate the words that you speak in a certain state of consciousness, that creates the reality of your prayer. Now we know that in the beginning of the Torah, where it speaks about creation, so how does the Creator create? So there's Asar Mamaris, Nivralim, the world is created through 10 utterances, through words. So there's a creation through speech, however this means, and we'll try to understand what this means. There's a creation through speech, and creation comes about through speech, and somehow, when we speak, so there's the divine language and human language. Divine language creates, human language contextualizes. That's normally the way we think about language. That if I define something, let's say I'm having an experience, and the experience is impartial. The moment I define it and give it language and say this thing is a good experience, it actually becomes good to me. The moment I define it and say it's a bad experience, the experience becomes bad. So what is your language doing? Your language is not creating the reality, but it's contextualizing the reality. Whatever the reality is, you're contextualizing it and giving it an understanding of what is your interaction and what is your relationship with that reality. But divine speech doesn't only contextualize, but actually creates. Vayimar Hashem Yiyar, Hashem says, let there be light, and there's light. So the words themselves, let there be light, whatever this means again, somehow creates this reality. And now the Baal Shem Tov comes along and teaches that we have the power to do that with our own words. That by the words that we speak, we are creating the reality that we desire. Now on some level, we'll have to go multiple levels over here, but let's, on the superficial, at least on some level, a superficial level, what is the idea of prayer? What is prayer? So prayer in Hebrew comes from the word tefillah, right? Which tefillah doesn't have any connection with what we call petition or request. The first time we find the word prayer, lispalel. Lispalel is to pray. One of the first times in the Torah has to do with Yaakov and Yosef. That when Yosef is sold into Egypt, and for many years Yaakov doesn't see him, and then finally at the end of his life he does see him. And he says, now that I see your face, I didn't imagine that it was possible that I was going to see your face again. So what is the concept of lehispalel, to pray? To pray is not to request and not to ask, but to fill the imagination with the possibility of something. Lehispalelti means I couldn't pray, which means I couldn't imagine that I will find you at my old age, or that we will meet up at a certain time. And then the idea of prayer is that you fill your imagination with this possibility. So let's say a person is ill. I just want to go a little bit deeper. So when we're praying, and let's say, Refreinu Hashem, God heal us. One perspective, we're standing in front of Hashem and asking Hashem to heal us. But from the deeper perspective, we're saying that's our levakesh menoises, that we have to ask from the words, which just means is that the way we formulate the words creates that reality. So there are two aspects over here. One, you're creating the possibility in your imagination of what could be. And then you're speaking that reality. So you're saying, I'm sick, God forbid. I need to first create in my perception the concept that I could be healed, or I could be married, or I could find my bashert, or whatever you're praying for. Because some people, I can't even imagine that it's possible. You start losing hope. So the idea is to fill this imagination. And then in the act of praying, which is through verbalization, that's what we pray. We pray through words. We're actually articulating our vision. And somehow with the words that we create, that creates the reality. Now you can ask, okay, so every person that has an idea, let's take it on a very simple level. Okay, the guy says, okay, I don't know, I want to make $1 million. I don't know if you want, but let's say you do want. Okay, so first you fill your imagination, you're feeling yourself as you made $1 million. And you say, I want to make $1 million, then you have $1 million. Is that so simple? So there has to be some type of missing link over here between how do we transform human speech into divine speech. That not only can we contextualize, but that we can create, that the words create our reality. So to understand this, we're going to go on a little bit of a journey. And we're going to go from the Baal Shem Tov, we're going to go backwards. So the Baal Shem Tov lived in the beginning of the 1700s. We'll go backwards to the Ramak, or Moshe Cardevero, who lived in the 1500s. And then we'll go back to Abulafiah, who lived in the 1300s. And then we'll go back to the Hasidic Ashkenaz, the Kabbalists that lived in Ashkenaz in Germany in the beginning of 10th, 11th century, and then to the Sefer Yetzirah. Now, what is the Sefer Yetzirah? Okay, so how do we go to this shalshelas, this sequence? The Sefer Yetzirah, there's a quote here from the Sefer Yetzirah. which is in the beginning of Sefer Yetzirah. It says that the world was created and fashioned, that there are 10 numbers and 22 letters. These are the foundations of all things. Of these letters, 3 are mother letters, 7 are double letters, and 12 are simple letters. What is, this is what it says. We're going to get into this, but there are 22 Hebrew letters. So in the letters themselves, they're going to be divided into 3 separate groups. There's going to be mother letters, there's going to be double letters, and there's going to be simple letters. So 3 mother letters, 7 double letters, and 12 simple letters. Sefer Yetzirah itself is a very interesting text, because Sefer Yetzirah is a very old text. Very old text. Some ascribe it to Avraham Avinu or to Rabbi Akiva. It's a very old text. It's already mentioned in the Talmud. But how do you decipher Sefer Yetzirah? Sefer Yetzirah is a very slim text, and it's the book of formation, and it talks about letters. What is this book? How are you supposed to read this book? Is this book meant to be read as a philosophical text? As a meditative text? How is this text supposed to be read? And we'll see soon that there was a certain art that was lost. I won't say completely lost, but there's a certain path that moves from Sefer Yetzirah to the Hasidic Ashkenaz. Is everyone following? To the Hasidic Ashkenaz, to the wise of Ashkenaz, the pious of Ashkenaz in the 10, 1100s. That moves then to Abulafiah. That moves to the Ramak. When the Arizal comes around, in the 1500s, it veers off from that direction. And somehow the Baal Shem Tov was connected to these texts even deeper, somewhat, than to the texts of the Arizal. And we're going to see there are very 2 different paths. One of the things that we find, if you're familiar a little bit with Abulafiah, Avraham Azulai. So Abulafiah is a mystic that was born in 1240. He's a very colorful character, very interesting character. He's originally from Spain, and he was a sort of a prophet. And then he met the Pope, and there was a whole interesting story with Abulafiah. But one of the things that Abulafiah taught, one of the main teachings of Abulafiah, is connected with the Hebrew alphabet, with the Aleph-Beis. That how you use, and we're going to talk about this a little bit, how you use the alphabet, how you use the Hebrew letters, in the different pronunciations. You chant certain letters, and you breathe in and out, and you move your head in certain directions, and somehow you're supposed to access the sounds of the universe, or the sounds of creation. Where does these teachings, where's the root of this teaching? The root of the teaching is from the Hasidic Ashkenaz. In the Hasidic Ashkenaz, this is connected with Rabbi Yehuda Chassid and Rabbi Eliezer of Germaiser, Rabbi Eliezer of Worms. In the Hasidic Ashkenaz were the first ones to really create a siddur in a way that a certain nusach, a certain version of the siddur, that they were very interested in also counting the letters of each passage of the prayers. So there was a big debate between early medieval scholars whether it's important, let's say you say the first prayer of the Amidah, is it important to say every single word? What happens if you miss a word? Are the words exact? Are they meant to be said in a certain order? So there was a whole teachings of you count every single blessing, there's 42 letters in the first words in the first blessing and correspond to this thing, and there's exactly these words. This was the opinion of the Hasidic Ashkenaz, of the wise of Ashkenaz. And then the Avudram and the Sephardic and the Spanish scholars were not into this. But Abulafiah was. Why am I telling you all this? I'm going to explain to you why. I want to understand that there are essentially 2 paths to understand the letters, the vowels, and what they mean. I'm going to make this very simple. One path will be more, we'll call it intellectual, or let's say left brain, and the other path would be more interested in the actual sound. So let's say, for example, we have 3 mother letters, 7 double letters, and 12 simple letters. The 3 mother letters is Aleph, Mem, Shin. Okay? Aleph, Mem, Shin, which is also the same pronunciation of the letters of the word Shema, which you have Shin, Mem, Ayin, and Ayin is like Aleph. The same sound. So Aleph, Mem, Shin. If you open up a book of Sefer Yetzirah, and it'll say, why is Aleph, Mem, Shin connected to the 3 mother letters? Because Aleph, Mem, Shin corresponds to the 3 basic elements. Aleph is connected to Avir, which is wind. Shin is connected to Eish, which is fire. And Mem is connected to Mayim, which is water. So fire, wind, and water. And earth is the 4th element that's composite of these 3. And this is why Aleph, Mem, Shin. There's another way of looking at Aleph, Mem, Shin. That Aleph, Mem, Shin are considered the mother letters because they are the letters, the way we sound them. Every letter is called a certain way. Let's say Aleph is called Aleph, and Aleph means Aleph, Lamed, Pei. That's the way you're going to pronounce it, right? But what's the sound of Aleph? The sound of Aleph is Ah. Or that's what we think, right? Because Aleph doesn't have a vowel. So theoretically, Aleph can be Oy, it can be E, it can be O, right? But let's just say, for argument's sake, the sound of the Aleph is Ah. The sound of the Mem is The sound of the Shin is Sh. Okay, so if you have Aleph, Mem, Shin, what you really have is Aleph is the beginning of sound, which is Ah. If you're going to begin any sound that you're going to pronounce, the beginning of that sound is Ah. Ah. And then you pronounce the next sound. But the opening of the mouth is Ah, just when you open your mouth. Is when you close your mouth. Very simple. So Ah, And this is why some people consider this universal sound, right? Why? Because Aleph is the beginning of sound and Mem is the end of sound. What is Shin? Shin is the midpoint between the sound and the silence. And this is the universal way, if you want to tell someone to be quiet, you say Shh, which is Shin. So what you're doing is you're looking at the Aleph, Mem, Shin and looking at them as their sounds. Okay, Aleph, Sh. Then we'll take the 7 double letters. We're not going to do this all the letters because it's going to take us a long time, but just I want to give you an understanding of this. There's 7 double letters. The 7 double letters are letters that can be pronounced with both a harsh and a soft variation. So let's say Beis. The letter Beis can be pronounced as Beis, like a B, and it can be pronounced as Vez, which is a V. So Beis is the harsh pronunciation, and Vez is the light pronunciation. There are 7 Hebrew letters that you can do these 2 things, that you can create a harsh pronunciation and a light pronunciation. The letters are Beis, Gimel. Now in Ashkenaz we don't have that, another sound of a Gimel. To us Gimel is a G. But in Hebrew we don't have a J. But Sephardic, certain Yemenite Sephardic Jews actually have a Gimel. Gimel is the soft pronunciation of the Gimel. That's the lost letter that we don't have in Ashkenaz. Daled is a letter that is both a soft and harsh pronunciation. Again, in Ashkenaz, and even in many Sephardic communities, Daled is a D. That's how we pronounce Daled, D. But Daled can also be TH, the. And this we know for sure, this is the way it was pronounced, because, for example, the Talmud, the Gemara says that when you say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, right? Here Israel, God is one, Echad. So you have to be Mayrach Be'echad. You have to say the Daled in extended sound. You can't do that with a D. Echad. That's it. You can't go Chad, d, right? The only way you can do that is if it's actually a the. You can go Chad, right? You can do that. So this we know that the Daled is a harsh pronunciation and a soft pronunciation. A Chaf and a Kaf. a pei and a fei. Okay, so these are the letters that are soft and hard pronunciations, and a tough and a suf. The one letter that we actually have lost completely, and no one has, as far as I know, is the letter resh. Resh is also a double letter, which means that there was a way to pronounce a resh, which in a harsh pronunciation and in a soft pronunciation. Resh to us is R. There's no other pronunciation. Maybe there's some cryptic Jews living in, I don't know, in the Amazon that pronounce resh differently, but we don't know about this. So these are the 7 general letters, which is both a harsh and a soft pronunciation. Then we have the 12 simple letters, which is all the other letters. Hey, Vav, Zayin, Ches, Tes, Yod. These are all the simple letters, which means these are letters that can only be pronounced in one way. So we have now.
What does ayin go under?
Ayin is a simple letter.
Oh, one is simple.
Yeah. What do we have over here? So we have Aleph, Mem, Shin, which are the 3 mother letters, 3 openings of sound. Then we have the 7 letters which can pronounce both as a soft and a harsh pronunciation. Then we have the 12 simple letters. And Sefer Yetzirah speaks about this in terms of the planets and the 12 zodiac and the 12 months of the year and the 12 tribes and 12 parts of the body. They all correspond to these different 12 parts of these simple 12 letters. Now, we're going to start with the first path. So again, there's 2 paths to decipher the meaning of the letters. Path number 1 is going to be a more intellectual, and path number 2 is going to be actually the sounding of them. And this is going to be interesting to us because we're going to see soon that the actual sounds is what creates reality. So, but let's go slowly to this. Let's look, for example, at the letter Aleph. We're just going to do this as one letter, very simply. If you look at the letter Aleph, it's on the left column over here. You have the Aleph. You want to understand what the Aleph is? Okay, so you can look at the shape of the Aleph. Take the shape of the Aleph. Okay, the Aleph is a yud here, and a line in between, right? That's the shape of an Aleph. You actually have the letter Aleph on top, which is written out. So what is the letter Aleph? If there's a yud on top and a yud below, so a yud in numeric value is 10. The lower yud in numeric value is 10. The stick in between is vav, so you actually have yud ke vav ke, you actually have the number 26. So Aleph is the same numeric value as God's name. That's why Aleph is Aluf Hasholam, so that's God. The creator is called Aleph. A deeper understanding, so Aleph is there's a yud below, a yud above, which means that there's us and God, and we're both interlinked between the vav. But you're looking at the Aleph and you're trying to understand the structure of the letter. So when you look at a letter, you're looking to see what is the composite of this letter. How is this letter composed? Every letter is composed, has different letters connected to it. Incidentally, every letter starts with a yud. Every letter has theoretically a yud in it, which means every letter begins at some point. That's why the yud ke vav ke, that's going to be the most important letters. But every letter starts with a yud, and then it's extended into the shape of the form of the letter. So Aleph starts with a little point, then it continues into an Aleph. A Beis starts with a little point, and continues into a Beis. But everything is a composite of different other letters. Every letter has different letters. That's one way of looking at it. So you're looking at the letter, and you're saying, what does this shape represent? Another interesting thing is also looking at the shape of the letter, is looking at it as a vibrant, alive thing. Okay, let's say you have an Aleph. I guess the Siddur has this, but if you have an Aleph, and then you have a Beis. Okay, so the Aleph is an open letter, correct? It's open to the letter Beis. Beis is also an open letter, but it's open to the other direction. So there's also the units of the letters. If you look at every single letter, every single 2 letters, Aleph-Beis, Gimel Dalet, Hey Vav, Zayin Ches, someone has a Chassidut, you can look at this. You'll see that every letter, the first letter is open to the second letter. The second letter has its back to the first letter. Every single letter. Okay, so the Aleph is open to the Beis, but the Beis is facing the Gimel. And this is that unit. The gimel, you know how a gimel is shaped, is open to a daled. And the daled, its backside, is to the gimel. Same thing also a hey and a vav and a zayin and a ches.
What about samach?
What's samach? It's either way. Which one is samach?
Samach doesn't have, it's not facing any letters.
Well, it can be facing either letter.
But isn't it?
Where yud, ches, tes, zayin, Aleph-Beis, gimel dal, hey vav, zayin ches, tes yud, chaf lamed, mem nun, samach, ayin. Yeah, samach works. Because samach, if the letter of samach is like that, there's a little indent in the front,
It's an indent, yeah.
which means that it's facing outward.
And shin too?
Shin too. Shin is moving towards the tuf. The tuf has its back to it. Okay, so you're looking at the letters as shapes. I'm just saying there's another way to look at it. So you can look at it and say, what is every letter? Every letter, let's say a ches, in the writings of the Ari or others, a ches could be seen as like a vav and a zayin together. So you have vav zayin, which creates ches. So you have a letter vav and a zayin, which are two sticks with a little bit in the middle. That creates the bridge letter of a ches. So you're looking at the shape to see what's the basic ingredients, what's the basic elements of these letters. Right? So you're looking at that. You're looking at that. So you're saying the letter is a composite of different letters. So which letters? The letter's open to another letter. Why is it open to that letter? Again, you're looking at the shape. Then another thing is, you can actually ask, is what is the meaning of the word? What does Aleph mean? I'm just using Aleph as an example. You can do this every single letter. What does the word Aleph means? So Aleph means aluf, like a general. It means alefcha, which means to teach. It means learning. An ox, aluf moed. There's aluf knaz. You have the idea of something powerful. So you're looking at the word Aleph and saying, okay, so what does the letter mean? Because if you know what it means, you'll know what it represents. Again, but that you have to know. You have to know Hebrew. You have to know a little bit what the letters mean to understand what the letters are. Another way is to look at the numeric value. What is the numeric value of the letter Aleph? So Aleph is 1, because every Hebrew letter has a numeric value. So Aleph is 1, Beis is 2, Gimel is 3. What is Aleph? Aleph is 1. But if you fill out the letter Aleph, which means Aleph is spelled as Aleph Lamed Pei. So Aleph is 1, Lamed is 30, Pei is 80, so you have 111 again, so it's 111. Okay, so what you're doing again is you're looking to find the meaning. Maybe I'm not really explaining this well. If Aleph is a conduit of energy, and the letters are conduits of energy, because the letters are the tools of creation. So if you want to understand what is this creation, so take the letters and try to understand what's the DNA of this structure. So what's the DNA of the structure that's called a shulchan, which is called a table? But what's on a deeper level, what's the structure of the DNA of the actual letter shin? Okay, maybe it's 3 zayins next to each other. Okay, what does that mean? What's the numeric value? What does the word represent? Is it open? Is it closed? Is it moving? Right? So you're looking to find the meaning of the letter through interpretation. So you have giver receiver. Then you have the idea of exchange, which is atbash, which is a whole other complicated system, which is you take letters and you interchange them. So there's one way to interchange letters, which is because letters have, hold on for a second. There's one way to interchange them, which is you're interchanging them with structures. So you'll say the first letter and the last letter are interchangeable. Or you take and divide them into 2. You'll have 22 letters, so you divide them into 2. You have 11 in each. And you say the first and the 11th or the first and the 10th. So you can create different structures of ways of interchanging letters to find out and decode what the meaning of the letter is. So you're looking at the meaning, you're looking at the numeric value, you're looking at the structure, right? These are the ways that you're going to decipher, you're going to understand what this letter represents. The other way to do this is, forget about everything that I just said. And it's not important if you understand it or you don't understand it. Vocalize it. Instead of trying to understand the numeric value or the Hebrew root of the letter or how it structures and what it means, feel it. Say the letter and see what happens. What is the sensation that occurs when you say this particular letter? It's a completely different conversation. Because what you're doing is you're saying there's there's power in these. There's power in this sound, and the sound has to vibrate with a certain resonance. It has to affect me in a certain way. So what I'm going to do is actually just going to recite the letter. And this is actually a tradition that from the Baal Shem Tov we have this. We know that the Baal Shem Tov, there were certain times that he felt that he was in a constricted state of mind, and he would ask his students to just recite Aleph-Beis, nothing more. Just this is the practice: sit and recite Aleph, Beis, Gimel over and over again. The roots of this comes from the Ramak, which go back to Abulafiah. We're going to discuss how to understand this. But the idea was that somehow, just by reciting the sounds of the letters, this opens you up because it creates a certain vibration. There's a verse that speaks in the Torah. It says, "Boy la teva, enter into the teva." So the Baal Shem Tov says that boy la teva, when you says go into the ark, that the word teva also means word teva. That boy la teva means enter fully into the words that you pray. Okay, so what does this mean? What do you think this means? It means, let's say a person is saying, Baruch atah Hashem. Blessed are you, or you are the source of blessing, God. You would think this means that you have to enter your full intention into the words Baruch atah Hashem. No, it doesn't actually mean that. What it means is like this. Think about what the words Baruch atah Hashem means. Put the thought aside and just recite the words without any intention. The intention has to become, you think, let's try to undo the mistake. You think that you're supposed to have intention while you're reciting the words. The Baal Shem Tov says, no, you're not. Your intention has to come before you recite the words, because if you're going to have intention while you're reciting the words, the intention is going to unfocus you from the sounds of the words themselves. So Baruch atah Hashem is blessed you Hashem. Okay, that's what I understand. But when I recite them, I'm just entering into the sounds of Baruch atah Hashem. We'll talk about this a little bit in more detail. And it gets even more detailed than this, is that not only Baruch, let's say the word, I'm sorry, not Baruch atah Hashem, this is the letters Baruch. Enter the letters, the sounds of the word Baruch, fully. Or not even Baruch, just Ba. Every sound that you pronounce, if you're saying the word bless, Baruch, so you have to enter fully, you think what the word blessing means, and then when you recite, you just say Ba, and then Ruch. Ba. You enter fully into that sound, feel what it feels. It has to awaken a certain thing, and you have to be fully in that, and not in a mind space. You're not trying to intellectualize what that sound means, because if you're intellectualizing what the sound means, you're separate from the sound. You have to just be fully present in that sound of what that word or that letter means, or feels. Just what the sound of ba means, or the sound of means. Just be present in that sound. Now, just a quick thing about the numbers, and we'll get back to this. In the numeric value, you have the letter Aleph is 1, and the letter Taf is 400. So that's the final. So it goes from Aleph, Beis, Gimel. What is the highest number that you can reach in the Hebrew alphabet using its own digits? 999. Well, 900 is the highest number, so then you go from the lower digits, which is 90, and then the lower digits of that, the tens, is 9. So final tzaddik tes is 999. Okay, so from the digits from 1 to 10, the highest number is 10, obviously. From the digits from 10 to 100, the highest number is... So you have 22 letters, and then you have the 5 final letters. Right? So the 22 letters, you have the first 10 is the first 10 digits, 1 to 10. The next 10 are the tens, so 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, which is Kuf. Then you have Rei, Shin, Taf, which is 200, 300, and 400. Then you have the Mansapach, which is the final letters. So in Hebrew you have, let's say, you have a Mem, and you have a Mem Sofit, or Shlos Mem. You have a Mem when it comes at the end of a word only. There's only one time in the Torah, L'Barba Misr, when actually the final Mem appears within the word. But that Mem Sofit only comes at the end of a word. Then there's a final Nun. Then there's a final Tzaddik, a final Pei, a final Chaf. The final letter, so you have 400, you have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So the final number is final Tzaddik, which is 900. 999. So what is... What?
900? How is the final tzaddik 900?
It's not the final tzaddik. Yeah, the final tzaddik is 900. You have the final mem, final nun, final chaf, mem, nun, pei, and 500, 600, 700, 800, 900. Matzapach. You have 5 letters.
Right.
So mem, nun, and chaf, mem, nun, pei, which is 800, and tzaddik, which is final, is 900.
They're considered hundreds?
They're considered hundreds, correct. So what you're actually doing, correct, you're adding the 22, you're adding the 5 numbers to the 20, to the 22. And they become final numbers.
How do you get to 999?
Because you're taking from the digits before, in the hundreds the highest number is 900, and in the tens the highest number is 90, and in the single digits the highest number is 9, so you got 999. So what's the highest number? What is, if you want to say infinity in Hebrew, what's infinity, what's beyond 999, which is a massive number? What's the highest number? Which is Aleph. Aleph is 1,000. Aleph, 1,000, and Aleph, 1 is actually the inverted image of itself. Because 1 is infinite and 1,000 is infinity. Now there's the Vowels and Alafim, but they're all multiplied times of 1,000. But 1,000 is considered, it's the biblical way to say an eternity, is to say 1,000 years. Okay? Because 1,000 is like higher than all the numbers that we can reach. Otherwise we're just going to have to multiply the same number. We'd have to use the same numbers. There's no digits. You can take a final tzaddik and a tzaddik and a test and write 999. How are you going to write 1,000? You have to start multiplying using the same numbers over and over again. So which means that the 1,001, so Aleph and Aleph, which is also the way you pronounce it, and the way it's written. It's just different vowels. And we're going to see soon about the vowels. Now, there's an interesting question that was asked, that Cardavero asks, or Moshe Cardavero, and we're very interested in Moshe Cardavero. The reason why we're very interested in Cardavero, the Ramak, is because the Ramak is going to be the link between Abulafiah and the Baal Shem Tov. We didn't discuss yet Abulafiah. We'll discuss soon. Abulafiah was a very interesting character. After Abulafiah passed away, or even during his lifetime, there was a big controversy about him. The Rashba, Shlomo Ben Aderes, the chief rabbi of Barcelona, another student of Rabban, said that he was crazy. Other people didn't like him, and he was doing all different interesting things. And people were not sure about this guy. Is he real? He's not real. So a lot of his teachings were basically not published for hundreds and hundreds of years, till basically 20 years ago. It's only in the last few years that people are republishing his material. However, if you look through the main body of work of Rav Moshe Cardavero the Ramak, who was the leading Kabbalist in his generation right before the Arizal, in his Pardes Ramonim, he quotes extensively from the Ramak, and from Abulafiah, but he doesn't quote him by name. The Ramak quotes Abulafiah extensively, big pieces that are just lifted straight out of Chai Olam Haba, which is the work of Abulafiah, and put straight into the Pardes Ramonim. All these things about sounds and about colors, and Sharagvanim, about the spheres have different colors and different imagery and different sounds. This all comes from Abulafiah. But he didn't quote Abulafiah by name. Maybe he didn't know. Maybe he didn't even actually know that it came from Abulafiah. It could be because there was other people that were. There was other. The Sulam Aliyah from Yehuda Abaltuni was also that period of time that also wrote books like this. Now, the Ramak asks a very simple question about the alphabet, and it says like this: the numbers. Is everyone following? Yeah, more or less. If you're more, then it's good. If the Ramak asks a very simple question, if the numbers go from 1 to 400, and then it goes to 900, then 999, that's the full number. He says it should have really been the other way around. Really, Aleph should have been the highest number, which in an inverse way, Aleph is the highest number because Abulafiah, we're going to see soon, says that Aleph goes with everything. When he's going to create a mystical chant with the 4 letters of the name of Hashem, the Yud Kei Vav Kei, he's going to always add the Aleph to it. He's going to say the name is actually Aleph Yud Hey and Vav Hey. It's actually 5 letters, but the Aleph is the mysterious letter that's 1 and 1,000, and it's a single digit and it's eternity. It's like this mystical letter because it also represents Aleph Shalom, represents God, the Creator, and infinity. So Aleph is an infinite number, and it always appears. But the question is, the number should have been in reverse. It should have been Aleph should have been 1,000, and then the number should have gone down. Beis, 900, Gimel, right? It's a degradation. You're going lower and lower. So the simple answer for this, it's not a complicated question, but the simple answer to this is actually that everything is rooted in the simple unity, oneness of the Creator. Hashem Echad is one, which is beyond number. The first expression of a number is in the most single digit, right? And then it becomes more multiplied and multiplied and multiplied. So it's actually the highest number is 1 because it's more simple, which means that it's more connected to infinity. And then it becomes 2 is more separation, 3 is more separation, 4 is more separation. Why am I telling you this? Because the Baal Shem Tov says that 400, or the letter Tuf, is actually 400 Alephs. Okay, this is very important. In other words, the way we look at the Aleph-Beis, if we're looking at this as a sequence, as conduits of energy, of life forces, which we understand as sounds, at different vibrations, the ultimate sound, the beginning of all sound, is going to be the Aleph. That's the that's the beginning of sound. It's also, not to confuse it, it's also connected with the letter Hey, because Aleph and Hey are actually both out-breaths, but Aleph is the beginning of sound in an out-breath, and Hey is actually just the breathing is Hey, right? That's why the Talmud, the Gemara says that Behei Nivra Olam, the world is created through the letter Hey, because breath is the beginning of sound. But the beginning of sound is Hey, that becomes Aleph, then becomes the variations of different sounds. But the first sound is Aleph. And then the sound becomes more mixed with other sounds, and it becomes various sounds, and it becomes 2 sounds Beis, and 3 sounds Gimel, and 4 sounds, right? So you have a shir meruba, and a shir meshulash. This is in Kabbalistic language. You have a song that has 1 dimension, 2 dimensions, 3 dimensions, 4 dimensions, and it has more dimensions, which means that it's creating more different sounds. But essentially, the only sound is really the sound of the Aleph. But when you look at 400, you're looking at 400 ones. Not this 1 and this 2 and this 3 and this 4, but the 1 becomes 2, becomes 3, becomes 4, becomes 5, becomes 400. What does this practically mean? What does this practically mean? This practically means like this, that when you, the intention is to get back to 1. That's why we're here. To the recognition of the oneness of God. The Achdus Habayra. The oneness of the Creator, the oneness in creation. That's the intention. When you see multiplicity, many things, what we're trying to do is trying to move those many things into one thing. I want to give you an example of this as a visual, and maybe we can understand this in terms of sound. I asked this question, I think maybe last time. When you close your eyes and you're praying, because we're talking about praying, what do you think about? Okay, you don't have to answer me the question, but everyone, you're going to have to think about something. Anything that you're going to think about is going to be idol worship, right? Because the moment you're thinking about something, it's nothing, it's not it. But you think about something. So what do you do? What do? You want to pray, not like the Baal Shem Tov said that you're praying to the words, and the words create the reality. Okay, that's going to be the next conversation. But just if you're the regular classical way, you're praying to Hashem, Hashem tiftach, open my mouth. Who are you talking to? What are you talking to? You can't say there's no image because there has to be something. So one way the Baal Shem Tov says you do this is like this. Okay, if you're very, very primitive, you can imagine a guy with a long beard and white giving out presents. Okay, but let's say you're a little more advanced. So you want to imagine you're going to see oil, you're going to see light. So you're going to close your eyes and you're going to see this multiple, infinite amounts of lights. Just try to imagine this, okay? What you're going to try to do in prayer is you're going to have to go from the multiple lights to the one light. That's going to be some level of going from the Tuf to the Aleph. Because you're looking at the Tuf as Tuf Iris. You're looking at Tuf as 400 lights. The 400 lights are 400 expressions of one light. And the intention is to move from those many back into the one, visually. And this also has to be in terms of the way we interact with reality. We have multiple influences in our life. We're hearing many different sounds in the universe. We have to understand that all the sounds that we're hearing is an expression of one. It's not one sound telling us one thing and another sound telling us another thing. There is actually only one sound in the universe. That's the sound of Aleph. The sound of Aleph is fractured into so many different dimensions that sometimes it's fractured into voices or sounds that seem completely against everything antithetical, but that you actually believe in the one. But the truth is there is only one. So you're going to have to unearth and find what in that thing is the Aleph. Because everything has an Aleph. You're following what I'm trying to say? Everything is really one. Everything's an expression of the one. I'll give you an example and maybe this is going to help. Someone once came to the Aleph-Beis and told him that the Baal Shem Tov teaches that Hashem is found in God is present everywhere. Aleph is found everywhere, like the word chet. You know the word chet, or sin, is spelled ches, tes, aleph. But the aleph is silent, which means that a chet is a sin, is a doing or an action or a mindset where the aleph is diminished, where you don't hear the aleph. Because you can take away the aleph, it says the same, it pronounced the same way. So the Baal Shem says everything has an aleph, you're just not hearing it. You're following? Everything has an aleph. So someone once came to the Aleph-Beis and said, okay, so heresy. Where's the aleph in heresy? So Aleph-Beis says very simple. When a poor man comes to your house and knocks on the door and says, can I have some bread? Don't say, oh, God will provide. You be a heretic and feed him. So the idea is you have to find the aleph within everything. The aleph is the one unified sound within all sounds. Let's try to, because we didn't even scratch the surface here. Okay. Being that there are these different variations of sounds, which means that they create the different sounds vibrations. We're going to maybe skip a little bit ahead, and we'll go to the vowels. And then maybe if we'll have time, we'll go back to this. The letters themselves, it's on page 2. The letters themselves, let's say you have the letter Aleph, which we said the letter Aleph is A. That's the pronunciation. So we're trying to understand that the connection is not how the letter is structured, what the letter means, and what the numeric value is, but how the letter sounds. So how do we sound the letter Aleph? Without a vowel, we don't have an Aleph. We don't have A, because A is with a nakuda, with a vowel, which is a patach, which says A. So essentially, there are 10 vowels. Okay? The vowels are what move the letters. Let's try to understand this on an anthropomorphic level. I have an idea. I want to create something. But instead of my means of creating, which would be through an action, imagine when I speak something, I create it. Okay? So that would be my tools. I can actually say, like, abracadabra. Right? What does abracadabra mean? Abracadabra. I will create as I speak. So I can create when I speak. Like the Creator. Vayamar Hashem yor, vayiyar. Hashem said, let there be light, and there was light. So let's say I could do this. What would be the process? The process would be like this. I would have a thought about something. I would want to create something, which means I would have an idea about it.
Sorry.
Yeah. After I have a thought of the creation, then I want to speak it. So what's the movement of thought to speech? First it becomes a breath. Then it becomes a wind in my mouth. Then I use the potentials of my mouth, which is my teeth, my palate, my tongue, my throat, right? And I create the sound. So I say z, I'm using my teeth. I say pa, I use my lips. But the sound, the origin of the sound is the wind in my mouth, which comes from my breath. But the origin of the breath is my thought to speak. Now, it's involuntarily, you're not doing this consciously, but the moment the brain shuts down, you're no longer breathing, you're no longer speaking. So the first thing that moves is the thought to speak, right? And then you speak, which incidentally is actually the letter Aleph. The letter Aleph is spelled Aleph, which is Aleph, Lamed Pei. Aleph Lamed Pei means I'm teaching myself to speak. Aleph is aluf, Lamed to teach, Pei to speak. So when I speak, there's a thought process that I'm actually speaking. This is the process, the way we talk. The origin of my word is my wind, breath, thought. And then I say ah. Okay? And I was saying that the letters, the Hebrew letters, these sounds, is the movement, is the vibration, the energy that creates physical vibration, physical energy that gives rise to matter. So if I'm looking at the table, what is a table? A table is actually the thought of the creator to create the table, which comes down into a breath, a wind, a speech that says sh lamed ches nun, but the shin lamed ches nun, which comprise the word shulchan, also has a vowel. So the vowel moves those words, those letters to create table. Are you following? This is very important because the simple question that you could ask, okay, so what does that mean? So the Hebrew letters create reality. And what does that mean? But there's a lot of things that don't have Hebrew words for them. So the deepest understanding of this is as follows. I'm going to do this very quickly. The deepest understanding is that every single tziruf, every single letter combination creates a reality. In the Torah is essentially Lashon HaKodesh. But in the Torah itself, you actually have Aramaic words, like Yigar Sadusa. They're words that are not part of indigenous Hebrew in the Torah. What does that mean? Because ultimately, the tziruf of all sounds will become one sound. Everything will become Lashon HaKodesh. Every single sound, the moment the sound is expressing the one of the Creator, that sound becomes now Lashon Kodesh. In the Messianic imagination, the idea of the Kulam Shechem Echad, that everyone will serve one, which means that every single vibrational possibility, every single sound possibility, which is an expression which creates a particular reality, will become part of the Aleph. Everything will be recognized as part of Aleph. So what is actually Lashon Kodesh? Everything. Correct. It's not yet, but that's the aspiration. The aspiration is because everything is Lashon Kodesh, because let's go back. How does creation come into being? Creation comes into being because there's a thought of the Creator to create, the desire to create, which is a thought to create. The thought becomes breath, which becomes wind, which becomes speech, and speech creates. Not only contextualizes, which is human speech, which is divine speech. So it creates, which means it gives it a certain vibration, as if you would imagine yourself speaking. When you speak, you're creating a certain sound vibration. This sound vibration actually gives rise to the thing that it's vibrating to. If it says tree, so trees come, right? Because the tree is a certain frequency. Why is a tree and a human? It's just a matter of frequency of energy. So everything is resonating with a particular frequency. The frequency of a tree is the letters that composite those words that say the word tree. And the frequency of me is the letters that composite my name, and your name, is you. And everyone's vibrating with that particular frequency. Everything in creation. Whether the thing has a Hebrew name or doesn't have a Hebrew name, but that's what it is. It has a certain frequency, which is a certain energy field, which the energy field is what is the physical energy, which gives its matter. So if you can reverse the process from its matter to the energy to the divine energy, from the Tov to the Aleph, you get back to one. You're going back to the first, to the one. So the letters again have the possibility of transmitting energy, but you actually need the vowels to create the sound, the particular sound. So Aleph is ah, but if it doesn't have a patach, it doesn't have a sound. So essentially there are 10 vowels. And the 10 vowels, if you look in the sheets, correspond to the 10 spheres. Again, this is also for the Ramak. And we'll see how this goes back to Abulafiah, but we're running out of time. But the idea is it goes back to the Ramak, which is that Kametz, the A sound, and then there's a Patach, which is the A sound. The Tzera, you see it on the right column, which is the A sound, and the Sega, which is the S sound, the Shva, which is the Us sound, Chaylon, which is the I, Chiruk, which is E, Kubitz, which is U, and Shuruk, which is U, and Malchus, which is the final vowel, does not actually have a sound, but that is actually the sound. The sound is that it's quiet. It's the quiet sound. Now, in the sounds themselves, there are 5 king sounds, or primary sounds. The 5 primary sounds is connected with the verse which said Pituche Chaisam, which is E, U, A, I, A, or A, E, U, I, A, whatever. Right? These are the 5 primary sounds. So Aleph is A, or I, or E, or U. That's the primary ways that we can pronounce these sounds. Now, interestingly enough, if you look in the beginning of the Torah, where it speaks about the creation of light, so the Tikkun Zohar writes that the word light, or, appears 5 times in the creation story. Just like 5 times later in the beginning of Shmois, which is a sneh, and it repeats itself, continues throughout every verse, every beginning of every book. But the 5 times the word or, which is light, correspond to these 5 vowels. Because light means it reveals what the potential of the sound is. If you have an Aleph sound, but there's no vowel, then you don't know what the sound of this letter is. We can do this very quickly. Just like we do this with the letters, we can actually do this the same thing with the vowels. You can decipher the vowels in terms of their meaning, their numeric value, the same way. Okay, Kametz. What does Kametz mean? Kametz means to close. Okay, so that's why it's Keser, because it's hidden. It's closed. Or you have the next one, it's shaped. A Kametz is shaped with a line and then a dot underneath, which is a Vav and a Yud, which is 16. If you look at the total numbers of dots and lines and throughout all the 10 vowels, you actually have also 16. So the Kametz encompasses all the sounds and variations of all that. Okay, so you're looking at the sounds. Or the Kametz in numeric value is 14. Okay, that's one way of looking at it. The other way of looking at it is actually at their sound. Take these 5 vowels. There's a certain direction and orientation to these vowels, which means they move you in a particular way. When you say the vowel or the sound of oi, your upper lip moves upwards. When you say e, your lower lip moves downwards. Did you ever wonder why the nakudas look like they look like? Why the vowels look like with 2 dots, 3 dots, 3 dots? What's these dots? They're actually shaped like your mouth, the way you say them when you're saying these vowels. So when you say a, you have 2 dimples, and that's why at Seireh is those 2 dots on the both sides. A, your mouth opens, and at e, your mouth falls in, falls lower. So the sounds of the vowels and the directions, this is what I want to explain to you. According to the other tradition, which we talked about a little bit, you're looking at the vowels and looking at them, what is the meaning of the vowel? What's the shape of the vowel? What's the numeric value of the vowel? Abulafiah is interested in what is the sound of the vowel? What does it affect you, and how does it affect you when you're sounding this vowel? If you're sounding a vowel and you're saying ooh, okay, so you're moving forward, right? When you say ooh, your lips are protruding outwards. So that means the movement. There's a psychological, biological feedback somehow that when you move your head in a certain way, you actually consciously move in that direction. So if you're saying ooh, you're moving outwards. If you go you're going inwards. So shva would be gvura because you're moving inwards, and oi would be open. It's like a cholam sound, which is compassion. You're following? So you're actually looking at the sounds and saying, forget what they mean. Or not forget. In addition to what they mean and what they represent and how they look and what they and their shape and their color and let's see what the sound actually does. Because the sound is an indicator to us what is the movement of this word. And this is what Abulafiah was interested in doing. Abulafiah created an entire system, and then we'll get back to the Baal Shem. Abulafiah created an entire system where a person vocalizes the name of Hashem. So the name of Hashem is the Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Yud, the Hey, the Vav, and the Hey, which correspond to the 4 stages that we spoke before, which is the thought, which is the Yud, and then the breath, which is the Hey, the wind, which is Vav, filling the mouth, and the Hey, which is out breath, which is creation of sound. Yud Kei Vav Kei. In addition to the letter is the letter Aleph. Now, how are you going to pronounce the Yud Kei Vav Kei? Because the Yud Kei Vav Kei, there's no pronunciation. Right? That's the whole thing. It's an ineffable name, and we can't pronounce it. But Yud Kei Vav Kei is the name of God, is God. Right? We have no word in the Torah for God. For whatever that image of God doesn't exist in the Torah. What is Yud Kei Vav Kei? What is God? What is Yud Kei Vav Kei? What does it mean, Yud Kei Vav Kei? Yud Kei Vav Kei means Haviyah. Haviyah means the beingness. The being. That creates beingness. Haya, Haya V'yeh, was, past, present, and future, the ultimate being. Ultimate being, bees, is a beer of beingness. So what is Yud Kei Vav Kei? What is God? God is the beer of beingness. So this is beingness, and God is the beer of beingness. There's no separation. This is just the manifestation or the articulation of the beer that's being. What's the creation? The creation appears to be resonating with many different frequencies, but the creation is from the Haviyah, from the Yud Kei Vav Kei. So instead of having our childish notion that there's God, and we're here, God's there, and God is somehow out to get us, and we have to please God with sending him little goodies every once in a while, and if we're good, we get prizes, and if not, we get whipped. We have to dispel that idea and understand that what is God is Yud Kei Vav Kei. And what is Yud Kei Vav Kei? Yud Kei Vav Kei means the beer of all being. So this being, or my being, or your being, we're all expressions of the ultimate being that's being through us. You're following? So and how does that being manifest beingness? What's the medium that the being manifests beingness? I don't know if there's a word beingness, but let's assume there is. How does the beer, which I don't know if there's a word for that either, how does the beer manifest beingness? Through the medium of thought, wind, breath, vibration, sounds. And everything is another sound. But ultimately all the sounds, of the multiplicity of all the sounds, is actually just an Aleph. It's an Aleph that becomes a Beis, that becomes a Gimel, that becomes a Dalet. It's the 1 that becomes 2, that becomes 3, becomes 1,000, becomes millions, becomes billions and trillions. Correct? But they're all just resonating from that original 1. And this is what the depth of what the Baal Shem Tov was saying. We can pray, we can speak as if we're separate from the being, the ultimate being. Or we can speak from a place of dveikus, where we actually enter into the flow of the being, of the beer being. If we enter into the flow of the beer being, then we become part of that manifestation. And just like the beer bees through the medium of speech, we create through speech. So on the deepest level of tefillah, the deepest level of prayer, we're actually co-creating our reality through the words that we speak. We're not asking, we're creating. We're filling ourselves with the idea of what we could create, and then we understand that the tools to create is the sounds, is the sacred sounds. And the sacred sounds is what is going to create. But remember, we have to... I want to give you a short parable to this, and then we'll take questions and we'll continue next week. An example of this would be like this. You can stand next to a pond of water. And the natural flow of the pond of water is that it flows outwards and it irrigates all the... I don't know if a pond of water irrigates the thing, but let's assume there's a natural flowing... What is it called? Flow of water. Stream of water. And the stream is flowing. And it irrigates all the surrounding and it gives life to everything around there. and you want a cup of water, you're thirsty. So you can do two things. You can go next to the water, take a cup, and fill yourself up a cup of water. But when you do that, you're separating yourself from the flow of the water. You're stopping the flow of the water. The flow of the water is to flow, and you're, instead of giving, which is the flow of the natural flow of the water, you're receiving. You're taking water. It's going to work. You're going to get satisfied. You're going to have the drink, but you're stopping the flow. There's another way to drink. I don't know if it's actually practical. You jump into the water and you open your mouth. So what you're doing is then you're becoming part of the same flow. Or you're standing, let's say, imagine another way. A person's praying for healing. A person's praying for a shidduch. A person's praying for livelihood, parnasa, health, whatever a person's praying for. You can come to the stream of life with your little bucket of water and try to pull out something out of there. And maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I can't tell you. I'm not God. I can't tell you how it works. But there's another way how to do this, which you're not coming to disrupt the flow of water. You actually jump into the flow of water and you're pushing out the water for health and for livelihood and for all the blessings. You go under the water and you're pushing the water in its natural flow. Are you following? Because when you're doing that, you're actually becoming part of the stream. So when you become part of the stream, you create the reality. Because you're not separating yourself from your stream. If you're praying in a way that you're selfish, let's try to rephrase this. If you're praying from a way that you're selfish, you're davening, oh, I would like this and I need this and I would that. And you're using words, and you said, okay, but you just said, if you create the words, I have the desire, I created the words, and the reality should happen. No, but you're cutting yourself off from that flow. Because you're becoming selfish, and the nature of the flow is selfless, to give. And you want to receive. But if you jump into the water, which become part of the flow, then you give nourishment to everyone, and everyone becomes nourished, and everyone becomes healthy, and everyone becomes healed. It's not about you, it's about everyone, about everything. The moment it's no longer about you and about everything, then you're part of that same natural flow that's moving outwards. And then you can actually create with your words. So I just want to conclude, and maybe we'll have to revisit this a little bit further. The idea of creating with our words is we're trying to say there's human speech and divine speech. Human speech is words, and we contextualize, this is good, this is bad, etc. Divine speech is actually the root of creation, which means that it's the vibration that gives creation reality. The Hebrew letters, this is what creates reality. The ba, ga, these are the created reality. The shulchan is the shulchan. Is a table because the letter shin, lam, chaf, nun, and the words shulchan, which in that, with those particular vowels, is the energy, is the frequency that gives rise to table. And you want to create that same reality, but you have to have that divine, you have to enter into that same divine reality. To enter into the divine reality, you can't be separate from the divine reality. You can't have it both ways. If you enter into the divine reality, then it's no longer about you. It's the whole world is praying through you for healing. If you're, God forbid, sick, or you need something, it's not just you need something. Everyone needs something. So you can pray for me, for myself, but then you're separating yourself from him and the other person. And then you're trying to take a bucket of water and go to the stream and take it out of the water. But there's another way. You jump under the water and you push out all the water that it irrigates all people. And everyone's praying through you. And everyone's healed through you. So somehow you have to let go of your ego in order to become part of that same divine flow. And that's dveikus. That's really what dveikus is. Dveikus is that it's not just about me. And I would say in a very, very simple tachlis level, very, very simple level. What this means is very simply. You know, you can think about yourself and say, okay, this is what I need, this is what I need, this is what I need. Or you can say, you know what, I need it, but so many, look at the world. When I say, Rafeinu Hashem, heal me, the world needs healing. So who's praying? Everyone is praying through me. I'm just the mouthpiece that's speaking the words. The lion in the jungle needs healing maybe. Or the tree is hurting. And of course another human being. But everything needs, the world is not a perfect place. I want to become part of this, the flow of the perfection of the world that could become. And that's how truly we become a conduit to create the reality through the words that we speak.